All right, guys, here we go again. Back in the shop. Tonight, the goal is to get this cross member in. As already discussed, I had a 4-inch drop member, cross member that was prefab. I'm going with prefab stuff, mostly in the interest of time because I actually do greatly enjoy fabbing things up. It just takes me about 900,000 times more time than it is worth, and I want this thing to be done. So, got a prefab one. It's just a straight piece of tube with a bracket on it. I already have it positioned in where it needs to be. Uh, Obviously, it's going to go down into the frame. And my plan is, bear with me here a second. My plan is to go ahead and use the prefab brackets here on the inside. And I'm going to go ahead and drill a couple holes and bolt it on. I just know as soon as I weld this thing on, I'm going to regret it. So there it is in position, only slightly high. So as you can tell and you realize already, the frame is wider in the back than it is in the front. Therefore, the cut line on this cross member is not going to be exactly a 90 or perpendicular to the plane of the tube itself, right? It's going to have to be at a slight angle. So here's what I was thinking. I marked it already. I measured. I did the math. And I marked it where it needs to be. I'm going to cut it. But I want to do a little more than just guess. It's not exactly 90. It's a skosh more, right? So, and I just realized I also want this cross member to mount in front of the bracket on the transmission as to give me as much room as possible when I'm taking the shifter in and out. If I got to pull the transmission someday when there's a floor in it, and you have the shifter and boot and everything and the floorboard, I can just unbolt it and then drop the transmission and out it goes instead of the huge hassle of trying to work around this thing underneath here, right? So I'm actually going to pull this out and I'm going to flip it around because it's going to go in front of that mount. Okay, and I'm going to square it up, and I'm going to actually get a square real quick. So I'm going to square this thing up so that it is aligned. And I already measured, and the transmission is exactly in the center of the frame right here. It's 9 and 7/8 of an inch on each side. So if I square this up, get it to where it is exactly, also exactly in the center. And I want to get it where it is it's flat to the bracket. And I'm eyeballing it a little bit here, but I can see where my cut line is. Bring it up to that cut line. That puts it right on this cut line. It's flat. It's square. Okay, so now this is my extremely sophisticated method that I'm going to use to make sure, or without just purely guessing what this angle is right here that I need to cut that cross member to. I'm going to take a piece of cardboard with a straight edge, a fresh straight edge, and I'm going to wrap it. I'm going to square it up on the inside of the frame here, square it up on the inside of the frame on the other side. I'm going to take my handy dandy Sharpie. I'm going to mark that dude right there. There's my cut line, and I'm going to get myself a nice little cut right there. And I'm going to do the same on this side, okay? So square flat to the frame, square flat to the frame, bend her around, go in here, Be careful, like kind of mess up movement. There's my cut line. Okay. Interestingly enough, so I got that all set. Got my square, got my cab. Interestingly enough, this some very sophisticated stuff right here. This was my cut line. That's the one I just drew. Slightly wider. Cut line, one I just drew. Slightly wider. You can always cut more off. Last time I checked, it's really difficult to put more back on. So I'm glad I did that. Feel like I got a very square, good looking, because I had measured with my calibrated eyeball with the tape measure all the distances, but I feel comfortable and confident in those cut lines. So I'm gonna get the chop saw ready. I'll do my normal time lapse thing. I'm gonna cut this off, and then I'm gonna take and I'm gonna mount it underneath there with these brackets on there. Line them up, clamp them where they should be. Make sure everything looks like it's gonna align properly. And then I'll tack these, and I'll pull it back out. I'll weld it where it should be. I'll put it all back in. I will then mark a center point on my holes, punch it, drill it, because who knows, in welding, this might move a little bit, right? And center punch, drill it, and then I have a cross member fully bolted up. So it'll probably take me 10 or 12, maybe 15 minutes, hours. No, probably take me a while here, but I'll set you up on my normal spot over there, and you guys watch me fumble around here for a minute. So that's my master plan. Here we go. Got her done. I was like an hour drilling holes, which, whatever. So we got the cross member cut. We got the mounting plates tack welded on. Proper position. You saw I put a level on this, put a level on this, put a level on everything. I checked to make sure my engine is currently sitting 1 degree tail down, but the rake of the frame is 3 degrees up. And I think I'm going to bring it down almost level. So maybe a degree or two, which should land my engine angle at like 2 degrees is the goal. That's where I'm kind of shooting, 1.5 to 2 degrees. I also strung a string from the tail shaft of the transmission there to the yoke. Make sure that was a level straight shot. And it continues at 1 degree slope. So I think feeling pretty darn good about that actually. Having this engine up higher allows it to go basically directly into the rear end. So anyway, we got our cross member tacked in, looking decent. All 4, which is actually 8 holes drilled through the frame, two on each, 2 on each side times 2 sides of the frame. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish welding this up, and then we'll bolt her in and attach it to the tranny, and holy moly, we could put an engine in this thing. And I think actually started running. So I think the next step is going to be finishing putting the engine together so we can attach the transmission to it, which I should probably clean this transmission before it snows. It's December 11th, I think. And by some stroke of luck, there's no snow It is like 24 degrees out there right now. Just why I'm sitting here next to the stove. Squirrel. I just realized I forgot my cookie. Anyway, so I'm gonna weld this up, finish that, get it underneath there, bolt it up. Nobody's ever gonna see these welds, but I will. So I'm gonna take my time, do them right, and I think that's my best bet is to just do it right here like that. So watch along. Here we go. Game on. Well, looks like a horrible weld on that side. Not any better on that side. Rule number 1, never give anybody a close-up of your welds. But, whatever. There you go. I'm still learning how to weld around a circle. But, anyway, I don't know how many times I gotta show you, but there it is. It's ugly. But it's welded. Let's do the other end. And while you're out there in interweb world, you can tell me how to do this and make them look pretty on a curve. I don't know. Slow it down. I'm sure comment number 1 is going to be slow down, take your time, get a steadier rest. That seems like a good idea. Anyway, let's get her done. Looks like a weld. I'm pretty jacked, man. This front end, we are back to the cab, folks. Whew, that's hot. Okay, how'd these look? They come out all right? Don't look at that side. Anyway, they look like welds. I'm gonna quench it, cool it off a little bit here, and then bolt that sucker in. It is 9:15. I'm picking my wife up from the airport here in 45 minutes. So by the time I get that bolted in, shower to get to the airport, you're right on time. Catch you guys in a couple weeks, probably. Booyah diggity. We got her done. Cross members in. Motor mounts are in. Everything fits by some amazing stroke of luck. I am sitting at 1.5 degrees. So if I end up dropping the back end a little bit, 1 degree, then I think it'll be okay. But it's probably, my engine will sit a little more aggressively sloped than I want it to, 2.5 degrees. I don't think that's the end of the world. Again, always welcome to comment. I welcome your comments. But holy moly, I think we can take the hoist off this engine, and I mean, it's just mocked up. This isn't the one. Like I said, it's time to finish the old 383 over there, and hopefully I have all the right parts. I got to get a bottom plate for this bracket right here, the transverse leaf, and then keep moving back. Next is to figure out what we're going to do back here, and to mount the cross member that's going to serve as my driveline loop, and my ladder bar support, front end of the ladder bars there. So man, I'm pretty stoked about that. That came out pretty nice. My bolts ended up being a skosh short, so I'll get a half-inch longer bolts, and then we're there. I don't see any. I'm not concerned about that at all. So life's good, guys. We'll catch you manana. Let me cut the stereo. All right. Here we go, guys. Next up. So I think I showed you. Got the motor mounts in. We got the transmission mount in. We can peek at that real quick. You can see prefabbed tranny mount. I went in and took the prefabbed brackets on here and lined it all up, cut it to width, welded those on, drilled the holes, bolted it on, boom. We are sitting, I'll take you with me here real quick. Currently, as everything is lined up, we are sitting at about, and you can see right here, about 2 degrees angle toward the rear, the engine through the transmission, right? So, yeah, 2-ish degrees, which is about what I want. I'm looking for 1.5. But I think we're going to end up, well, actually, yeah, we're sitting at 1.5. I'm hoping that stays about right, about where it is. But in the process here, I do think we'll end up with a little more slope through the transmission to the back of the vehicle here, because I'm going to end out, I believe, bringing the back of this frame down some. So anyway, project for today is, you can see over there somewhere, there's a Ford 9-inch I want to put under here. This is an old 50s Chevy rear end that came in it, and I think it has like 487 gears or some craziness. I ran the tags months ago. Anyway, it's way too low geared for what I want to do. Plus, obviously, I like the interchangeability of the third member on the 9-inch, and they're common, and you can get them in all the things. This obviously has an interchangeable third member on it. I don't know anything about it, and I'm probably doing the wrong thing by taking it out, because it might just work fine with some big old tires on it. But either way, I want a 4-link. I'm sorry, I want ladder bars on this with a panhard bar. So today's goal, we're going to take all these old brackets, cut them off, clean the back end of this frame up, and then I think my son's coming by after school, or after rehearsal. I don't know why I said school, but when he gets a chance, and we're going to bring the bed in, set it on here, and start to measure how long we want this the frame to be, to make it all line up exactly right. The whole thing's going to shrink forward some. I want to set my axle underneath here and decide and determine how far forward or back to make it look right relative to everything else. And then obviously the goal then is to take this prefabbed cross member for the front of the ladder bars. And it came with prefab brackets that we'll get in place. We'll weld up and get all the geometry correct, measure, weld, make sure everything fits right. But if I can get all that cleaned off today and out of the way to where I can put some wheels and tires on that third member, on that rear end, that 9-inch, and bring it under here and start mocking up my ladder bars and everything, I'll be a happy camper. So that is, again, that's my goal for the next little bit here. So I'll put you back up on the shelf and do a little time lapse as I sit. Hopefully not enjoy the fire too much, but it is nice. cold out, but we're gonna get after it. Catch you hopefully when it's all cleaned up and out of the way. It's gonna take some time. I'm hoping I can cut all those brackets off without messing up the frame, because I plan to reuse the metal, obviously. And we're debating. Me, myself, and I are debating whether to redo this right here and make it a little taller and maybe a 90-90 instead of this angle, which is, I think, unnecessary because the back of the cab is all 90s for the most part. So we'll see. First things first, clean that up, save this steel so that I can use it to fix that. I do have some new, it's 2 by 3 inch rectangular tubing, I believe. So I can redo this if I want to, but I'm not so sure that I don't like how it is, and I don't necessarily want to do a whole bunch of work for no reason. So I think I'm just going to clean that up, get the rear under it, set it on some jack stands, get it where it looks right, and see if if I have enough play in the suspension still that it's not going to hit the rear end and do a bunch of funky things. So, all right, again, we'll catch you. You can watch me buzz around like a bee here, hopefully, and get it done. Thanks. All right, guys, we got her done. Let me turn the tunes off. Check it out. As you saw, I started with the old plasma cutter here. Wasn't going to cut it. This was a torch kind of job, so I went and got the torches out. And here you go. We'll give you a good little look here. It's nothing too crazy, cool looking, but just torched them off. I did my best not to, I hope you can see that, not to get into the actual steel that I'm still going to use. And I think I did okay. I got some boogers to clean up, but I got to figure out which portions of this back part of the frame I'm going to use and which I'm not before I worry about cleaning it up. So I'm going to have to get the bed in here, do some measurements, and I'm either going to cut the back off here and then just move this back piece forward if I'm going to keep the Z-bend in it, or I'm going to cut up there at the Z and redo that, in which case I'll probably, to minimize my cuts, I'll come in this way and cut and just move the whole back end up that way. So we got her done. Now to move the old Bumble one out and roll this rear end out from underneath here, and then grab that one that's over there. You can barely see. Put some tires on it, roll it up here, get it positioned where I can mock it up and get my ladder bars all set. So anyway, there you go. Took about an hour. Should have taken like 15 minutes. But that is the theme around here. So I'm going to roll that out, move some vehicles, get the other one mocked up, and we'll come back and check you out there. It is almost Christmas. It is cold, which is why I have this goofy beanie on. And thermals and everything else. We got a fire going. We'll get warmed up here and get going. All right, so I think where we left off, you watched me in fast mode remove the old rear end springs, perches, cut them off. It went incredibly well, actually. I left just a few burgers on here that you can see. So we're ready to figure out what this is going to look like back here. Step one, I have a couple wheels and tires over here that I got off a guy out in the middle of nowhere. And I think I measured, and I'm pretty sure this 4.9 inch is a 5-on-5, which I think is not all that common. But I got some other wheels and tires that are really what I want to probably go with a 30-inch tire. And so I found some that were kind of junk that I actually got for free, but looked super cool. And they didn't fit their 4.5s. So these, I believe, are the right bolt pattern. And they are 28. Yeah, 28 by 10 and a half or 15s. Okay, so I plan to run 15s by 12s at least, by probably 30. But 2 inches is going to get me close enough. So I moved the hoist over. I'm going to jack this sucker up, get these tires on. I need to put some air in them. Hopefully they don't blow up in my face. I don't think they've had air in like 3 or 4 decades. Some pretty cool little Thompsons though. Get the rear end on wheels, get some jack stands under it, positioned. In the meantime, I should have done this before. I should have gotten that bed, but I don't think you guys can see. Maybe you can sitting over there. I moved it in from the snow. It was in about a foot of snow, and I brought it in the other day after I took the rear end out. At the same time, I brought that in. It is now thawed out, dried out. So I need to hoist it up on my contraption here for lifting things inside my shop that's homemade and sketchy, and probably will end up sending me to the hospital. But I'm going to get it positioned on there, lift it up, so that I then can move this frame back and get it all set up. Working this as a one-man gig here. Get it set up where the frame is in position, the rear end is on tires that are close. The center line of the rear will effectively be an inch, right? Lower than what I'm shooting for, because these are 28-inch tires. I'm going for 30, which obviously the 1 inch would be up here. It wouldn't affect anything. And the other inch is going to be down here to get the 2-inch delta. So I'm going to mark it all up. And then somehow I'm going to figure out how to get that bed over here, slid onto this rear end, hopefully without it falling. But on this contraption, and I guess I should have positioned the rear end in the right spot, but I blew it underneath my contraption so I can lift the bed on and off and work on the rear end with it and without it. But today's primary goal is to get tires on this rear end, get it mocked up, start to figure out, get my ladder bars out here and start to figure out where I need to put this cross member. And hopefully it will be, I believe, NHRA regulations. Don't quote me on all this, but I think it's an NHRA. I'm assuming it's NHRA regulations. Require that your driveline loop be within 6 inches, I believe, of the back of the transmission or the yoke. I'm not sure which. So I'm going to get this up here as far as I can to have the rear end positioned relative to the bed such that it looks right. I was going to center line it, but Joe was up here the other day and mentioned, it may not look right center. It may look right further back or further forward. I think the consensus is further forward toward the cab. But I think if I get it mocked up, put the bed on, get my ladder bars, kind of start thinking about my ladder bars, where they're going to be. I have 28-inch ladder bars, which in hindsight, I was trying to use these holes right here that are already in the frame. And so I was making them as short as I could, not have the rear end way out there. And in hindsight, I probably should have just gone with like some 36-inch ladder bars, which would have put that cross member all the way up where it needs to be and have the rear end fall where it needs to be. But I bought them, they're here. It's gonna work. And I'm gonna put my driveline loop where it lands to make everything else work right. And hopefully it's within NHRA uh, specs. Who knows if I'll even ever put this down a track? And who knows definitely whether or not it's going to go fast enough to matter. So I'll do like I always do. I'll throw you guys up on the shelf. I'll put you on a time lapse, and you can watch me work. Put some air, get everything mocked up, and I'll come back and I'll come out back and catch you when things are a little further toward being able to start cutting and welding and moving on. My hope is I won't have to redo this. I kind of want to because one, my dad said I should. Always a good reason to want to. And two, because it has these perches in it already for a ladder bar system that are going to look weird and maybe be in the way if I don't use them. And I have the steel sitting right there in those speedway boxes. I have 2 3-foot pieces of rectangular tube. So I could go a 90 up and back and redo this whole back end, but I'm gonna get it mocked up and start to think about what I can cut because I have a weld seam here, I have a weld seam at the joint here, I have a weld seam here, and then there's a weld seam on the very back where somebody had built this to have this back end right here was all the way up here, and so it was only like this long, and you could see where they even had a fancy cutout for the rear end. But then another person put this extension in it that I'm taking out. And I'm going to find a happy medium to support that bed over there because that's what I want to use. So follow along as I go. I love comments, feedback. First hot rod I've ever built, ground up. First hot rod I've ever built. So if you have any feedback for me as I go along, shoot it in there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'm learning as I go. And hopefully you guys, maybe somebody else will too. So put you on the shelf. We'll get you going. Enjoy the fire. All right. Well, that was short-lived. Took about 4 minutes. No, I don't know, maybe 8. Those wheels are 4 1/4. I thought my rear end, I don't know. I measured it with this tool I have that, quite frankly, I should throw away and just keep my tape measure with me. But this rear end is 4 3/4. Not 4.5, not 5, 4 3/4. Let me triple check. Yeah, 4 3/4. So I need some 5 on 4 3/4 wheels. I got 5 1/4 for 4 1/4, and I got 4.5, I think, down below. Doggone, man. For a 4 9-inch. So I gotta find new wheels and tires before I can really do a whole lot. But for now, I think what I'm gonna do, because I believe somewhere I have enough jack stands. Yeah, there's 3 more over there. 4. So I think I'll just set it on jack stands and set it at the proper height, which, I mean, center of the axle should be 15 inches if I want to run a 30-inch tire, right? Somehow I think that's probably going to be wrong. But so I'll just set it up on jack stands, get it positioned and on jack stands so I can start to get my ladder bars set up and everything kind of dialed in to get it right. So skipping the wheels and tires, they looked cool for about 2 seconds there. If you see, you should be seeing some big old Mickey Thompsons on these centerline wheels on Marketplace. By the time I get this published, probably already did. Anyway, if anybody needs some 28-inch, 10.5-inch wide center lines, there you go. Gonna skip something else. I'm gonna run down below, just double check that the other wheels and tires I had aren't actually what I needed. But I might just put on jack stands. Anyway, follow along. That's where we're at. Gonna keep getting it sorted out. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put the bed on it yet or not, but I might. All right. All right. We got the bed on here. We got it mocked up. I have the rear end in position about where it needs to be. I discovered this bed actually has it has an old, real faint line right here where the old fender must have been. And this hole on both sides appears to be the center of where the that fender probably was back in the day. And so that is kind of where, and even in looking at it when I mocked up the wheels and tires on it, I rolled these guys up there and set them next to it. I kind of went, okay, how's that gonna look? You know? And I don't know, I don't remember if I told you guys or not, but I thought I had, I think I mentioned the other set of wheels that I really are the right size and everything weren't the right bolt pattern. I thought these were. These are the exact same as the other ones. These are actually 5-on-4.25, as are the other ones. And I triple measured my rear end, and it is actually 5-on-4.75, not 5-on-5 or 5-on-4.5, 5-and-3/4, 4-and-3/4. Anyway, so when I mocked up these tires, when I did all my measurements outside and kind of laid this out in my head, I had determined based on the measurements of the rear end and the measurements of the bed, I want a 5 to 5.5-inch back spacing. Okay, so that would have, these are your standard 4-inch back spacing. That would put another inch right in here. Okay, and I think you can tell, I'd like, I think for the tires, well, I was thinking I want them to ride right underneath in here. But that then wouldn't allow for any suspension at all. Because this is a 20, what did we say, a 28-inch tire, I think, if I remember right, high. And if I put the rear end at 14 inches, that doesn't give us basically any play right here. I'm going to take a pause and get back. Anyway, I'll find the tire, and I was thinking it would ride in here, but in order to do so, this bed would have to sit probably higher, I guess, so that I had enough room for suspension, and I would want equal or more room between this lip for suspension and the top of the tire as I have between the rear end and the frame. So part of this whole thing was trying to figure out, do I need to cut that frame and make the Z or L in it taller, right? So let's take a look at this real quick. So now that we have it all mocked up, if you look in here, you can see over there, I have bed up off the frame a bit here. Okay, sorry to whip you around there so much, but that's about where I want it because I want this part of the bed to land right about even. I think I want it to be right about even with this line, whatever you want to call it, on the cap. Okay, so that It'll be a nice flow from there back to the bed. In doing that, the bed's going to be up off the bottom a little bit, which looking at other cabs and trucks and whatnot, I think that's going to look right. Because if I put it way down, it would look way stepped down and kind of goofy. So that is the goal. So here's what we're dealing with here. I think that is relatively where I want the bed to ride. It's where it's at right now. That cross member is impeding my ability to make it a little bit higher. But you can see right here, it's almost even with the bottom of the frame. So I think that's how I'm going to make that work. Which is good. I can take this center cross member out there, support beam, whatever. I can bring the bed up, and I'll just put some kind of perches or whatnot on the four corners, get it to attach right to the frame, and just bolt it to the frame. And I think it'll look and ride fine. So the question was back to the Z, right? How much room are we going to have? And I had my handy dandy tape measure. Bear with me here a second. I'm going to walk you over here and get the old tape. All right. So to take this tape measure, and we look right here. So this rear end is sitting, the center of the axle should be 15 inches off the ground. Okay. You can see that it's right at 15 inches off the ground, which would accommodate and account for a 30-inch tire, which is what I think I want. I could do 28, which would be 14, and then go down just a little bit. But at a 30-inch tire, 15 inches off the ground, that only gives me 3 inches of clearance between my frame and my rear end. Is 3 inches enough? Maybe. Ideally, I think I would want like 5-ish, but that would also complicate how I'm going to attach the bed to the frame, right? Because if I bring the frame up to where it's 5 inches of clearance, that means this Z right here, right? If I can get you to where you can see that a little better, this Z then has to go up a couple more inches, which then means the bed, I'm going to have to make some kind of funky perch. Not that big a deal. That's where we're at. The debate: can I manage 3 inches of suspension? Is that enough? I'm not going to be loading this down with anything at all, ever. So I think it's enough. I think it's tight, but I think it's enough. Um, I'm doing ladder bars with just coilover shocks. I think it all is going to work. If I do that, then I can mount my coilovers right in there, nice and clean. I can probably even put them on the inside mounted right here, going down and out underneath the frame, kind of, and not have to cut up the bed a bunch. This 100-year-old steel. All questions. Anyway, that's what I'm sitting here trying to figure out, because then we come back here and the cross member for the ladder bars, which also serves as a driveline loop, in order to be 28 inches from the rear end, appears as though it's going to land, as you can see, maybe about 10 inches from the back of the transmission, which is about 4 inches further back than I'd like. Again, perhaps I should have gone with a longer ladder bar, but I think that would have gotten extra complicated for clearance and play here, right? As the ladder bars go up and down, getting underneath this bed and the cab, the back of the cab, right? So the way this is all going to shake out is that ladder bar mounting point is going to live up underneath here. Okay, so I'm gonna only, it'll be the front of the ladder bars, so they're not going to move that much. But the further up, the further back on the ladder bar, we are where the cab and the bed are going to engage it potentially. So I think it's all coming together. I'm going to keep figuring, measuring, thinking, and start mocking up probably ladder bars and the brackets. Maybe even get the shocks, coilovers out here. Mock them up. I'm gonna get my panhard bar, which I am already concerned because the bracket I bought mounts back here. Okay, so it's gonna mount on the back side of the rear end, and it sticks out. And then the panhard bar. Let me get what you can see this a little better. It's gonna mount over here. Okay, and it's going to go behind the rear end to a mount on this side or vice versa, right? I might have my mount down from the frame here, going to that side of the rear end, attaching to the bracket that I weld to the rear end. So it will ride behind the rear end, kind of like this, okay? Um, which you don't see a lot, but I'm based on physics. That should keep the rear end from minimizing the amount of shift like this on the rear end when you go over bumps, right? With that bar, longer, swinging further. Um, but you see guys mount them on top. You see them mount them all over the place and short ones, and I don't know. And the interwebs confirm my theory that the longer is better, but I don't know. But here again, like always, put a comment down there if I'm completely off base. So I need to sort out what kind of tire I'm going to put on here, because if I'm going to go with a big backspace, and I'm going to set you back down here real quick. So if I'm going to go with a big, deep backspace with the goal of getting this tire all the way in there to where it's living up close to this bed, then I'm going to have to go with a shorter tire, where I'm going to have to bring that bed up further, which I could do the Z, but then is it going to sit way high behind the cab? And you'll have the cab here and the bed way up here, like it's up in your ears. I don't know. I think I want to match the space between the rear end and the frame to the space between the top of the tire and this, or I have the tires live outside of that, which would super simplify my life actually, because then I can go with your standard 4-inch back spacing, which I believe to be the standard based on what I know and see. And that's this tire, and I think it would almost clear. And I could go with a real big, wide tire, tall tire. But from the rear end, you're going to have, from the rear end, if I go with that big, tall tire, that is the standard backspace, you're going to have that big gap between the bed and the tire itself. So would I rather have a gap when you're looking at it from the back, a gap in there, and a big tall tire that sticks out here, right? Or would I rather have a tuck underneath there and be limited and make it wide and fat, but short? The shorter I make my back tires, the more it helps me with my caster, right? Because currently, you might recall, I'm sitting with, on this front end over here, I'm sitting with, I believe, if I remember right, if I can find I can't remember where I put this, I think right there. So, I'm sitting at 5 degrees, 5 degrees negative caster, which is perfect. Positive, negative, whatever. 5 degrees backward, which is perfect. But I brought the back end of the frame down now, which it wasn't before. So let's see what that actually did to our engine too then, in that case. Okay, so now our engine is just barely like a degree, 1 degree maybe, sloped backward. So sitting you back down here, I like that. 1 degree on the engine. I got five degrees positive caster, I think it is. I don't know why I can never remember this. Said it 1,000 times. I feel like not really. So my caster should be right for the car to go straight down the road, hopefully, and not get a bunch of bump steer and all that. Again, I hope I'm using those terms right. That's my understanding as of today. I'm learning. I think that's all going to work. And my shot to the rear end is, I mean, straight. It's a real straight shot. I think if I, it's real close to just straight level shot right to my rear end. So enough talking. I'm going to do just a little more figuring. Maybe I'll drop this rear end another inch and go with the 28-inch tire, which is this tire right here. Which wouldn't be bad. Maybe just go extra wide, 28-incher, and try to tuck it underneath the bed here. So hopefully it won't hit the bed, but it won't have this big gaper gap here. And I don't think I need to redo my Z in that case. I think it can live just like it is. All right. Thanks for listening to me talk through that in my brain. Again, give me your thoughts, what I'm messing up here. Obviously, one of the very next steps is that we need to fix this frame, right? At a minimum, we need to take and make this frame match the bed. But obviously, before that, I need to decide, am I keeping that Z or am I not? Because if I'm not keeping it, I'm going to go to a 90, which will shorten it up automatically. And then I'll have a different measurement back here in terms of what I cut off. And I'm probably just going to come in here and just cut it. I mean, there's some cute little how you doings in the frame. It'd be cool if they were right where they belong. I mean, I could keep, this is the other thing I noticed, but I'm not sure. It looks to me, maybe you guys can tell there, does this take a turn right here where there's a weld right here? I don't know, does it? Kind of looks like it might to me, right? In which case, all the more reason to get rid of that. I don't want a bunch of weld seams either. Otherwise, I'd shorten it on the other end, which there's a weld seam there. So maybe I should anyway and cut that really ugly, bad weld seam out up here. You see what I'm talking? Cut it out here, cut out a section here that would bring that in, but it's not going to matter. That rear end's never going to hit where that thing is anyway, and it's goofy. I don't know if it's actually weaker. It wouldn't really matter because it's way out there on the end of the bed in the truck. So I'll probably just go back as far as I need to, cut it off, bring that cross, the end piece in. Like I have a 3-foot end piece anyway, brand new. Probably just cut it and weld that one on. Be good to go. So I'll make a final decision on this Z. I'm going to hit up the guru, Brother Joe, Brother Steve, Dan, those guys, and see their thoughts. But I'm probably going to keep it. Shorten up the frame. That'll save me a bunch of time. Live with the goofy little place that they were going to mount their ladder bars. And then go ahead and get my ladder bars in, get all the suspension in, get all this back end done. And then under wraps, get that engine done. Because we need that, obviously, to run. We got fuel systems, we got electrical systems, we got everything still to go. But again, thanks for listening on, listening to me ramble. Give me your thoughts. Next time you see me, I think I'm going to be cutting steel, starting to move things around to get it to fit just right. Thanks.